What's going on YouTube? Matt from GarageMC here. Guys, in today's video on the 465ex, we're down to the part where it's like, you know, the last 10% of the build takes 90% of the time. Yeah, that's where I'm at right now. So I've been thinking about the carburetor situation, and that's what we're going to talk about in this video. So stay tuned. I want your guys' feedback on this. You guys know I read and answer all my comments, so feel free to drop a comment. And if you have not yet, throw me a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel, man. We got all kinds of stuff going on. Let's get into it. We're just going to be talking about this and spitballing some ideas together. Alright, so the 465ex build that we're doing right now, which is this one here. And guys, I went with the black chrome for the stator and clutch cover. So I think that looks pretty damn slick. Big fan. If you guys haven't seen the short that I posted, a subscriber, Constantinos, sent me out this Henson rear brake pedal for the 400ex. New old stock, guys. It had 99 to 2001 400ex on the packaging, and I'm like, why does it say that? Well, it's because it was probably put into a store around 2001, obviously. So, anyway, that's not what we're talking about. But, so the carburetor situation on this. We're doing this quad. If you don't know what's going on the channel, I got a ported and polished head. I posted some pictures in a community post the other day. Check those out. Went crazy porting and polishing this head. Like the inside of where the exhaust flows out is like a mirror. It's really nice. Also went ahead and built it out. Put all Kibble white black diamond valves, dual springs, titanium retainers, Kibble white valve seals. The works. Quad's gonna have a stage 2 hot cam in it. Stage 2 because you know, where I live is mostly trail riding, so I want mid-range power. But the carburetor. So I want to put a 2004-2005 Honda Trx450r carburetor on the quad. So the quad being stroked to a 465, the carb stock is probably a pretty good match for that since it comes off a 450R. Couple issues with putting a 450R carburetor on a 400ex. One, the width of them is different from one to the next. So you guys can see here, like here's our 400ex carburetor. Here's the 450R carburetor. So if I can find it, if I take a ruler here, you guys can see the height difference here. So the 400ex being on the left is slightly taller than the 450R that's on the right. So I did some scouring of the internet, and what I found is people are either using a carb adapter that goes on the 450R carburetor to extend it that little bit to make it reach the 400ex intake boot, which also has to be heated up and stretched. I'll show you guys the size difference here between the two carburetors now. So, all right, this is the part that goes into the head, or into the intake boot that goes on the head. They're not terribly larger. It's a little bit bigger, like a few millimeters. I believe the 450R carburetor is a 42 millimeter and the stock 400ex is 38 millimeter. Don't quote me on that. That's just, you know, from what I've found, I think that's what they are. Obviously I can measure them, but I didn't do that yet. And on the other side of the carburetor, where it goes into the intake boot that comes from the air filter, if I can get this thing to stand up without falling down, it'll be good shape. So here's the size difference here between these two. Not much. Going into the boot that comes out of the air box is a lot easier than getting it into the other boot that goes on the head, but not undoable. I was doing some thinking, and I've seen what other people have done. So for the difference in the height of those sitting on the bench like that, like I just showed you, I've seen some people they'll make a plate back here and move the airbox forward a little bit, which will obviously bring the intake boot forward the amount that it would be short using the 450R carburetor. I'm not a fan of that idea. I'm more like, if I'm going to do something that's going to be a custom fit, I want it to look like as if Honda did it at the factory and you can't even tell that it's been upgraded or modified. That, I think, sets builds apart when you look at something and it looks like it was made that way. I mean, obviously, whatever I do, it's going to be made that way, but you guys know the point I'm trying to make here. I want it to look factory as possible. So, especially for this build. And you guys that are following the channel, and if you're not following the channel, man, you guys are missing out. This build is pretty crazy for a 400EX. You know, one of the largest size bores and strokes you can go to with these, and everything's all Lone Star on the quad. All the aluminum's been vapor blasted. Everything's been just like done to the umpteenth friggin' times, or however you want to say that. Anyway, so I started thinking, what could I possibly do to take up that extra slack? And I got to get this figured out before tomorrow. Today's Friday. I want to ship this carburetor out to Curtis at 223cycles.net. He's a licensed key-in dealer here in the USA, so I'm going to have him do some custom stuff to this carburetor too. He's going to delete, like, you know, the hot start and all the other little stuff that we don't need on here. I'm probably going to make a plate to block off the throttle position sensor, you know, because we obviously don't need that. Real quick though, let's talk about other problems that I've seen people running into putting these carbs on a 400EX. The other one being, you can't use the choke because I guess the gas tank comes to here or something. So ideally, in my head, instead of bringing the intake boot to the carburetor, let's bring the carburetor to the intake boot. So that will probably let us use our choke, which, I mean, you know, if your quad's jetted right and it ain't ice cold out, you have a accelerator pump on these, just like the stock 400EX, which is this part here on the 450R. It looks identical to the one on the 400EX. So probably won't need it anyway. The 426 I built doesn't even need it. Ice cold, you just touch it and it fires up. You just look at the start button and it starts. But I'm probably going to make a plate to block off the throttle position sensor, and, you know, want to make it to where I can use the choke if need be. What other modifications? You got to take out the hot start plug, or clip this and leave the plug in there. I'll probably try and figure something out that I could make for that, or that might be something that Curtis takes care of for me. But we got to get our measurements and get the stuff I need done. This way, when this comes back, it's just plug and play, ready to rock. All right, so here's my idea, guys. This is the whole point of this video, to see what you guys think about this. So the intake boot on a 400EX looks like this here. Obviously, bolts to the head, and then you put your carburetor in there, which I'm also took a template of the porting on the head and I'm matching it to this. Something, you know, a lot of people, when they have a ported head, they don't even think of. They just leave it, and then you got some nasty shelf in there that the air is going to drop into when it flows into the carburetor, this angle here. So I'm like, all right, if I bolt this onto the head and make a spacer, how big of a spacer do I need? But with a spacer, you need to integrate an O-ring in there. That's what seals this to the head. So these boots, how they're made is this is a big chunk of metal in the flat spot here. That's what keeps its rigidity when you bolt it to the head. So, and obviously it already has the O-ring into it. So how thick of a spacer would I need to make to take up this height difference here? So check this out. It just so happens that the plate that's already in the intake boot is damn close, maybe not exactly, but damn close to the difference that we need, which will absolutely work. So what if I take this boot, which is being ported to match the part that goes on the head, I cut the rubber off, put it on the belt sander and flatten this side, and then use obviously longer bolts and take another intake boot and put it onto this plate. So that'll give us our difference to bring the 450R carburetor back a little bit more towards the intake boot. And for those of you that can't visualize what I'm trying to describe here, maybe I'm not wording it right if you're not understanding what I'm saying, but I'm sure a lot of you are. I just went ahead and sanded it down and stuff like that. This way I can give you guys a little better visual of what I'm talking about here. All right, so the regular intake boot, like I said, we need to come up the thickness of what I was saying between the difference of the 450R and the 400EX carburetor. So Now, like I was saying, for a visual purpose, it's got an O-ring in there. So that's what seals to the head. So let's put this one to the side real quick. Here's one with the snout cut off of it, and I started sanding it down. I want to get it to where it's completely sanded down flat. So O-ring, right? Bang, on the head just like that. Now we have a nice metal spot here for another O-ring to go to. Bang. That's what I'm talking about right there, guys. That gives us our difference. It looks like it was made, well, in fact, it was made for the quad, but you know what I'm saying? So naturally, I'll have to use a little bit longer bolt to account for the extra thickness. But that's it, man. I'll put some new O-rings in these things. Maybe a little Honda bond between the two. If I really wanted to get carried away, I could bolt them both together and belt sand the edges, because that's aluminum in there, and polish the sides. But we're going to leave it just like this. I'm not going to push my luck. Obviously, I'll have to hog this out. So you guys can see I already started porting out the side to match the porting on the head. You can see the difference here, just how much I'm taking out of that. So, and then when I put these two together, I'll bolt them both together and then port both of them to match each other, so the flow is perfect all the way through. There's your visual. All right, back to what I was saying. In my mind, it might give us a little bit more power gain too. I mean, think like you know, small block with intake manifolds. You got flat planes, you got high-rise ones, so it might be onto something here and get a little bit more power out of that. So naturally, I'll take this boot, this one here. This is going to be the one that I cut this rubber snout off of. So it'll be like, you know, it'll only be as tall as this this plate that's in here. That's it. And then we'll still have our O-ring that goes to the head. And then when we take the other boot and put it on top of this plate with some longer bolts, that one will obviously have an O-ring in it as well and seal to that plate. So our whole sealing issue will be fixed. The thickness that we'll need will be taken up. This way we don't have to make no custom brackets or anything. Everything gets still bolted into where it goes, and it'll be just plug and play. I'm also going to hog out the boot a little bit. This way the 450R carb fits in there without stretching the crap out of it and having to run some serious tension on the clamp so it doesn't pop out when we're hitting jumps and bumps and whoops and whatever else we might throw at this quad when it's done. Because you guys already know how I am. If you follow the channel, I actually ride my shit. We don't just build it and, you know, sit there with a beer looking at it going, damn, she looks good. We don't do nothing like that, guys. We ride the shit out of these things around here. So this is just a short video, guys. Just wanted to put this out there. Let me know what you guys think about this idea. Obviously, we're not building anything in this video. This is just talking about it. I value your guys' opinions. That's the whole point of this channel. All like-minded people into the same stuff, able to conversate with each other and talk about stuff. What else did I want to talk to you guys about? That's pretty much it. So stay tuned for the next build video on the Trx465ex, and we're getting there, guys. Trying to do a first start and do the heat cycles before the end of the month. Obviously it won't be with that carburetor yet, but I could start it and let it do its heat cycles probably with a stock 400ex carb. You know, get the heat cycles out of the way. This way when the carb comes back from Curdy, bolt it on, away we go. Anyway, drop a comment, man. Let me know what you guys think about my idea with this, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Don't forget to throw me a thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed, I guess you're just never going to at this point. I'll see you in the next one. Peace!